Astroworld Tragedy. Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival was meant to be a celebration. On November 5th, 2021, nearly 50,000 fans packed into NRG Park in Houston, Texas for the highly anticipated event. Among them was 9-year-old Ezra Blount, attending with his father, and 22-year-old Barty Shahani, a computer science student at Texas A&M University. As Scott took the stage around 9 p.m., the crowd's excitement transformed into something dangerous. The mass of people began to surge forward, creating waves of human pressure. Those at the front were crushed against barriers. Those in the middle became trapped in an increasingly compressed space. Witnesses later described feeling their feet lift off the ground as they lost control of their own movements. The pressure intensified with each passing minute. Security personnel and medical staff struggled to reach those in distress as bodies became packed so tightly that many couldn't expand their lungs to breathe. Ezra, sitting on his father's shoulders, was caught in the surge. When his father lost consciousness from the pressure, Ezra fell into the crowd. The boy was trampled as people, unable to see or control their movements, pressed forward. Barty, standing nearby, was similarly caught in the human vice. Her chest became compressed between bodies pressing from all sides. Medical experts would later explain what happened next. The victims experienced compression asphyxia. Their chest cavities were squeezed so forcefully that they couldn't expand to draw breath. Their hearts struggled to pump against the external pressure. Oxygen levels in their blood plummeted within minutes. Barty was eventually pulled from the crowd, but had already suffered multiple heart attacks. She was declared brain dead and passed away on November 11th. Ezra, after being in a medically induced coma for days, died on November 14th from severe damage to his brain, liver, and kidneys. They were among 10 victims whose lives ended not from excitement, but from the crushing force of the very crowd they had come to join. Louella Fletcher-Michie. On September 10, 2017, Louella Fletcher-Michie, the 25-year-old daughter of Holby City actor John Michie, was celebrating her birthday at Bestival, a popular music festival in Dorset, England. As evening fell, she was with her boyfriend, Sion Broughton, in a secluded wooded area on the festival grounds. Shortly before 7 p.m., Louella ingested a powerful synthetic psychedelic provided by Broughton. She had also consumed. The combination of these substances would prove catastrophic. Within an hour, Louella began experiencing extreme hallucinations and disorientation. Rather than seek medical help, Broughton recorded her deterioration on his phone. The footage later recovered showed her in severe distress, repeatedly hitting herself, screaming and flailing on the forest floor. Her body temperature rose dramatically as the drugs triggered hyperthermia. Her pulse raced to dangerous levels. Medical experts later explained that causes an intense, prolonged reaction in the body. It overloads the central nervous system, causing erratic heart rhythms, extreme body temperature, and seizures. The addition of amplified these effects, putting unbearable strain on Louella's vital organs. For nearly 6 hours, Louella's condition worsened. Broughton continued filming as she became less coherent, her speech slurring and movements becoming spastic. Her body was shutting down organ by organ. The medical tent was just 400 meters away, a 5-minute walk that was never taken. Around 1 a.m., Louella suffered a series of seizures as her system finally collapsed. Her heart, racing from the drug cocktail, could no longer maintain rhythm. Her breathing became shallow, then stopped altogether. By the time festival security found them, Louella was dead. Broughton had recorded 51 minutes of video and taken multiple photos of her final hours, but had never called for medical help. He was later convicted of manslaughter by gross negligence and supplying Class A drugs. Costa Titch. On March 11, 2023, fans at Ultra South Africa in Johannesburg cheered as Constantinos Tsobanoglu, known professionally as Costa Titch, took the stage. The 28-year-old Amapiano rapper had risen to fame with hit songs like Big Flexa and energetic performances that blended dance and music. That night, thousands gathered to watch his headline set. As Costa launched into his performance, the crowd's energy matched his own. He moved across the stage with precision, executing the complex dance routines he was known for. The lights flashed, the bass thundered, and fans sang along to every word. No one suspected anything was wrong. Approximately 15 minutes into his set, during one of his most popular songs, Costa suddenly stumbled. His movements became uncoordinated. For a brief moment, he paused, seemingly disoriented. Then, without warning, he collapsed to the floor of the stage. The music continued as confused audience members watched. After several seconds, Costa struggled back to his feet. He attempted to continue performing, raising a hand to acknowledge the crowd. It seemed the moment had passed, but within moments, his body went rigid. He fell again, this time with more force. Security personnel rushed toward him as he began to convulse. Medical experts later explained what happened in those critical moments. Costa's heart had developed an acute arrhythmia, an irregular heartbeat triggered by a combination of intense physical exertion, dehydration, and an undiagnosed heart condition. The electrical signals controlling his heart rhythm became chaotic, sending his body into shock. As the seizure intensified, oxygen to his brain was cut off. Each second without proper blood flow caused irreversible damage to his neural tissue. By the time medical staff reached him, Costa's pupils were fixed and dilated. Despite frantic CPR attempts, his heart could not be restored to normal rhythm. The festival's medical team worked desperately to revive him, but Costa Titch was pronounced dead at the scene, his life ending in front of the very fans who had come to celebrate his music. Roskilde Festival. On July 2, 2011, Denmark's legendary Roskilde Festival was in full swing. Despite persistent rain and gusting winds, over 100,000 music fans had gathered for the 4-day event, one of Europe's largest outdoor festivals. As night fell, attention turned to the orange stage area where headliners would perform. Near the stage stood a 30-meter lighting tower, part of a zip-line attraction that had been closed due to the deteriorating weather conditions. At approximately 11:30 p.m., festival goers noticed a woman behaving erratically near the structure. She was a 35-year-old from Berlin, later determined to be heavily intoxicated with a blood alcohol level 3 times the legal limit. Security staff became alarmed when she began removing her clothes despite the cold, rainy conditions. Before anyone could intervene, she slipped past a barrier and began scaling the metal framework of the tower. Festival security personnel shouted for her to come down as rain made the metal structure increasingly slippery. Witnesses reported seeing her climb with surprising agility at first, reaching nearly 30 meters above ground. Several staff members attempted to follow but couldn't reach her quickly enough. The woman paused momentarily about halfway up, seemingly realizing the danger of her situation as strong wind gusts buffeted the tower. What happened next unfolded in seconds. Her wet hands lost their grip on the rain-slicked metal. She scrambled to regain her hold, fingers desperately seeking purchase on the smooth surface. For a brief moment, she hung by one hand, her body swinging in the wind. Those watching from below could only stare in horror. Then she fell. The human body accelerates at 9.8 meters per second squared. In the approximately 4 seconds of freefall, she reached a speed of nearly 80 kilometers per hour. There was no safety net, no water below, only hard ground. The impact caused catastrophic trauma to her skull, spine, and internal organs. The sound of her body striking the ground was audible even over the music and rain. Medical personnel reached her within minutes, but there was nothing they could do. She had died instantly upon impact, her body broken beyond recovery. Mad Cool Festival. On July 7, 2017, Madrid's Mad Cool Festival was hosting its second night of performances. Over 45,000 attendees filled the grounds, anticipating Green Day's headline, set later that evening. As the sun set, 42-year-old Pedro Aunion Monroy prepared for his aerial performance scheduled between acts. Monroy was an experienced acrobat and dancer who had performed around the world. That evening, he was to execute a dramatic aerial routine inside a suspended illuminated cube, hanging approximately 30 meters above the festival grounds. At 10:45 p.m., spotlights focused on his position as he was hoisted into the air. The cube began to rise, dangling from cables attached to a crane. Monroy wore a harness connected to the structure with safety lines. As he reached the planned height, he began his choreography inside the transparent box. The crowd below looked up, many filming with their phones. Suddenly, something went catastrophically wrong. Witnesses reported hearing a snap, the sound of a safety cable failing. In an instant, Monroy's expression changed from concentration to terror as he realized what was happening. The primary connection point had broken. For a fraction of a second, Monroy hung suspended by a single remaining cable. It couldn't bear his full weight. The harness attachment tore free from the cube entirely. There was no safety net below, no backup system to catch him. Monroy began to fall. The human body falls at approximately 9.8 meters per second squared. In the roughly 2.5 seconds it took to reach the ground, Monroy would have had time to process what was happening. Medical experts note that in such situations, the victim remains fully conscious during the fall, experiencing intense terror before impact. When Monroy struck the ground, the force shattered his spine and caused massive internal trauma. Emergency medical personnel reached him within minutes, but the injuries were unsurvivable. Despite their efforts, Pedro Aunion Monroy was pronounced dead shortly after arrival at the hospital. Perhaps most disturbing was the festival's response. As Monroy lay dying, the music continued. Green Day took the stage on schedule. Most attendees remained unaware that they had just witnessed a man's death, the tragedy unfolding above their heads as they waited for the next act. Festa da Uva. On March 4, 2018, the final night of Festa da Uva, one of Brazil's largest wine festivals, was reaching its climax in Caxias do Sul. Thousands had gathered for the closing concert, where popular local bands performed on the main stage. The atmosphere was celebratory after 2 weeks of festivities. Among the crowd was 32-year-old Daniel Gades, a local factory worker who witnesses later described as visibly intoxicated. Blood tests would later confirm his blood alcohol level was nearly 4 times the legal limit. Around 11:30 p.m., as the headline band played, Gades began pushing his way toward the front of the audience. When he couldn't get closer to the stage through the dense crowd, he made a fateful decision. Security cameras captured him climbing onto a speaker stack and then reaching for the metal scaffolding that supported the stage lighting. The band noticed his actions and stopped playing mid-song. The lead singer grabbed a microphone and pleaded with Guades to come down, warning of the danger. Guades ignored these warnings. He continued climbing higher, now nearly 50 meters above the ground. The scaffolding was positioned dangerously close to overhead power lines that supplied electricity to the stage. These lines carried 13,000 volts, enough to power several city blocks. Festival security personnel attempted to reach him, but they were too late. As Guades reached the upper section of the scaffolding, his back made contact with an uninsulated portion of the power line. The physics of what happened next were instantaneous and devastating. Electricity always seeks the path of least resistance to ground. In this case, that path was through Guades' body. The 13,000 volts entered through his back and exited through his hands and feet where they contacted the metal scaffolding. The current instantly heated his body to temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Celsius at the contact points. Witnesses described a blinding flash and a loud crack as the electricity arced through him. The current caused his muscles to contract violently, locking his hands to the metal structure. The extreme heat vaporized body tissue and ignited his clothing. Within seconds, the circuit breakers tripped, but by then, the damage was done. When emergency personnel reached him, Guades showed no signs of life. The electrical current had stopped his heart instantly and caused catastrophic burns to over 80% of his body. He was pronounced dead at the scene as horrified festival goers looked on. If you want to see more videos like this, click the video on screen now and make sure to subscribe.